I'm Euro,
I'm Chris.
and this is Fork Bomb. January 30th, 2017. Today's topic is learning about the Amiga. So, I know that probably most of our listeners know what an Amiga computer is, but I kind of wanted to introduce it to people just in case they don't know about it. They were popular computers in the 80s and 90s. They didn't really sell well here in America, but they did really great in Europe. The name Amiga was chosen because they knew Spanish and because it came before Apple and Atari and is user friendly. So Apple and Atari from the in alphabetical order, so they would come first. Another interesting fact is it's the Amiga OS was the first OS with multitasking support for consumers. John C. Dvorak apparently had mentioned something to the something about the Amiga OS, about it could all run within 256K of memory, which is really impressive. Now Windows takes lots and lots more memory than just that. So I believe the Amiga was well ahead of its time. I mean, the first Amiga, which was the Amiga 1000, was made in 1985, and just learning about it now and seeing the graphics and the sound that came out of that, I couldn't believe it was something that came out in 1985.
So
it was amazing.
So part of the reason why it was so impressive is they were doing something that other computer manufacturers wouldn't be doing for quite some time, and that was offloading various tasks onto dedicated chipsets. A dedicated chipset for the graphics, a dedicated chipset for the sound, a dedicated chipset for certain kinds of graphical rendering. And that resulted in a lot less load on the CPU, and the end result, well, that combined with just brilliant engineering all around, resulted in a computer that was light years ahead of even Mac OS back then. And
I wanted to point that out. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. And
I wanted to point that out. Yeah.
We thought that that Apple had a cult following. We thought that they were Windows fanboys. We thought that that the regular Commodore had a following. Holy crap!
We thought wrong.
This is by far the cult classic of all cult classics. This is the be-all, end-all of hidden gems in the computing industry. You thought Pirates of Silicon Valley was good. This needs a movie. Why does this not have a movie? This is so much more interesting.
I completely agree with you, Chris. I mean, holy crap! Just learning about it, and I had fun. I hadn't even turned on the Amiga. Unfortunately, we had to use emulators since we don't have the real deal. But just learning about the story, I hadn't even turned on the Amiga yet, and I already loved it.
Oh yeah, we should mention neither you or I have before this had any experience at all with this machine whatsoever, except for knowing the name of it.
That's it.
So the goal of it was to do as deep of a dive as we could into it, learn about it, play with it, and then share what we learned. And I'm definitely going to keep playing with this afterwards.
Me too.
What was I guess we should start with favorite parts, maybe.
So favorite parts as far as just the machine itself, or
anything. Your favorite part about this whole experience.
Actually, my favorite part was just learning the story. I felt like I was reading a book or something, a really good book. But the system itself, it's so impressive, especially for the year it came out, that I couldn't believe as I was using it. I couldn't believe that this was made in 1985. No way blew my mind. And when you think about it, the Amiga was using the Motorola 68000 chip. That CPU was used on a bunch of other systems, including the original Macintosh. When you use the original Macintosh compared to like an Amiga 1000 or an Amiga 500, the Amiga 500 just blows it away. I mean, what color graphics? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
The Mac was in black and white. That alone. Yeah.
The Mac was like using a newspaper compared to an iPad, compared to a modern day iPad.
Yes. I mean, that is a valid comparison. The sound quality was amazing. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, we had, I guess the sound quality back then in 85 was on par with, I don't know, maybe a little bit above what Super Nintendo could do.
Yeah, I don't want to say it was all bleeps and bloops, but it was close to bleeps and bloops. So this was. I know they had synthesized they had synthesized sound, but that was studio quality stuff, and this had it on the machine itself.
Yeah, remember when MIDI got good, like in the late 90s, when MIDI finally started sounding
like the Amiga.
Yeah, it sounded like that in 85.
Yes. Another thing that blew me away was that people didn't quite know what to do with it. It was so advanced. I've never even heard of this happening before. I mean, as far as computer history, and apparently the system was so advanced that people didn't really quite know what to do with it. They didn't know. Should they use this thing as a business machine? I mean, they didn't know, and so they ended up using it for games and some video production and 3D. But yeah, most of the market was in a home market. It wasn't really in a enterprise market.
On the topic of audio quality, I've actually prepared a little sound sample from the Amiga demo called Hardwired. So there we have a lovely sound sample. Keep in mind that was in 1985. Nothing else sounded like that in 1985.
No, nothing. Definitely not for the home market. Absolutely not. I mean, what was in 1985? We had the original NES. The Master System hadn't come out yet. Atari. Had the Atari. Yeah, nothing. Nothing for the home market anyway. So, yeah, absolutely. Very, very impressed by the graphics and sound. Absolutely. I see why they used it for video production and 3D rendering. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we didn't at all mention what it was actually used for.
So, one of the interesting things that they used it for that I learned was that, so I'm a big fan of Babylon 5, the show, the show that came out in the 90s, and they used the Amiga to render all the 3D scenes in seasons 1 and part of season 2.
That is really cool.
Yeah. So some awesome tidbit of information there for the Amiga. So what else? I can go over. Well, I should probably let you. I should probably let everyone know how it works. So the Amiga has a Kickstart ROM, okay, or a ROM called Kickstart, and basically what that does is it kind of starts up the rest of the operating system. So think of that as a BIOS, okay, or as the Macs have their firmware ROM too. So the Kickstart is their firmware ROM, and then Amiga boots into there's an Amiga DOS, which is the Disk OS and the command line. And then if you're loading Workbench, which is the GUI that goes on top of that of Amiga DOS, then you would well, with my experience using the older systems, you'd have the system disk. So the Workbench 1.3 system disk, and that would load the GUI with Windows pointing. Go ahead.
I should point out that early on, the OS and Workbench were the same thing. Later on, they were separate entities where the underlying OS was called Amiga OS and the file manager or the shell was called Workbench.
Good point. Yeah. Yep. So I was using it with the emulated floppy disk, and it would load up Workbench like 1.3, and so it had icons, the mouse pointer, file manager. You even had a clock. So a lot of those tools were part of Workbench. Some interesting things about Workbench is that you could use long file names in Workbench. You could include blank spaces in your files, in your file names, and you didn't necessarily have to have extensions for them to work. So I thought that was pretty interesting too.
That is really cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But however, we've been absolutely gushing over its merits, but it certainly was not a utopia. For example, while it was a multitasking operating system, there was nothing to really segregate the memory that the multiple processes used. There was no memory management unit, so one process could easily overwrite or corrupt the memory of some other process, which could lead to really bad things. And the way that they got around it was just by basically telling the devs, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Another thing too is that the original Amiga, so Commodore had released all the system manuals for the Amiga and had left it completely open for devs, like completely open. Nothing was locked, and so that since people were used to programming on the Commodore 64 and they would do a poke on memory, that would lead to crashes. So sometimes some programmers would be they could be a little sloppy on their work and do some system calls that would that would cause some crashing because of that no memory management unit on the early Amigas.
Interesting.
I heard that that memory management wasn't implemented until Amiga 4. But
really?
Yeah.
That was after Hyperion Entertainment bought them, wasn't it?
Let's see.
Like
Commodore
wasn't 3X the last official?
I don't recall, but yeah, you might be right. I don't know. I know Commodore closed in '94, and then ESCOM bought the rights to Amiga, and then that went down, and then Gateway was involved. So yeah, but I heard that that was one of those things about memory management. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong. This is something that I read. I obviously don't program. I don't program for Amiga, so I don't know. And so it would be, if somebody else can tell me otherwise, that's great. But I heard that it was Amiga 4 that brought memory management into the OS without using a third-party utility or anything like that.
Was not aware of that. I will have to confirm that later.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm on the Wikipedia article right now.
Great. Another really impressive thing about the Amiga was its large color palette. So people would bring up pictures of clowns and of different deviant art. Go ahead.
4.0, the final update, released in December 2006, brought virtualized memory.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe that's what I read.
The ability to use memory off the disk.
That's probably what I read. So I'm going to retract what I said about memory management until I actually find out. It does seem a little strange that it was that long, that it took that long. But still, even then though, how? Virtual memory was used in early versions of Windows and okay.
I mean,
DOS.
but what's even more interesting is that Amiga OS is still under active development.
Very interesting. Yes, absolutely. I was surprised to see that. I believe it's a Amiga 4 update 5 or 6 was made in December of 2016. I mean, we're in January. That's impressive.
Even though the latest version was Amiga 4.1 and was called Amiga 4.1 the final update, it does not mean it's going to be the final version. I was watching a video last night about it, and Hyperion Entertainment did file for bankruptcy recently. They are, however, restructuring, and once that's done, they're going to continue development on it.
That's fantastic. Oh, and not to mention the forks of the OS.
Yes, Eros, for example.
Morphos.
Yes, MorphOS. They're Amiga-like systems, and it was really fun to be able to play with some of these forks. For example, you can play with I don't know how it's pronounced, Eros. You can play with that one in the Amiga Forever emulator, which thank you for introducing me to that. Amiga Forever lets you run every Amiga system pretty much ever made. If you want to see the first Workbench, if you want to see Workbench 3.x, if you want a blank PowerPC system that can run 4.1, it's all built in. It even has a whole game section, which you just select a game. It automatically brings up the appropriate system, no configuration. It's beautiful. And my favorite part, my absolute favorite part, is it has a whole section for demo scenes.
Yes, they're
Demos.
amazing.
Do you want to explain those, or do you want me to?
Well, you have more experience with those demos. I watched a few of them, and again, I was blown away by just the sheer awesomeness of these demos. They reminded me of like early '90s music videos with 3D renderings. Amazing stuff. But go ahead, Chris.
So it's officially called the demo scene, and what people that participate in demo scenes are groups of programmers, artists, and musicians that custom build multimedia demos in order to try to outdo each other. Basically saying, look what I can do. Oh yeah? Well, look what I can do. And this just goes back and forth for years, and it's still going on, even on the Amiga. And because there's a very limited set of hardware that they're focusing on, being all the Amigas ever released, which wasn't that many, it really gives them the chance to just focus on a specific few systems and optimize it for those systems. And it's like you were saying, it's like early 90s music videos, only it's things that look and sound far beyond the capabilities of what you would think those machines can do. And that's because they're not written in a high-level language like C or C++. They're not written to be portable. They're not written to run on other systems. They are written in assembly specifically for the hardware. They've pulled out all the stops. Every hardware hack, every undocumented feature they can find, they use and exploit the hell out of it and use it to make the most awesome-looking, awesome-sounding, creative thing they can possibly make those machines do. They're all on YouTube. I highly suggest everyone look up Amiga demo scenes. They're incredible. They actually made me feel nostalgic for the 90s. They actually made me feel some of the ooh, wow, this is amazing magic I felt when I first got into computing.
Yep.
And those moments are becoming fewer and far between for me.
So I want to give a thank you to the company. Now I'm gonna kill the name because I don't know how to pronounce this right, but it's Cloanto, I believe, Cloanto, for putting Amiga Forever together. I know it uses WinUAE, the WinUAE emulator in the background. Um, but just the way that Amiga Forever runs is it makes it really really simple to run any Amiga program. So thank you. And if anybody's interested, you can find Amiga Forever at amigaforever.com. So
We should also mention that the emulators are incredible. I mean, this is software that is near perfectly emulating extremely custom built hardware. Um, it always amazes me that people are able to pull those kinds of feats off. They have such intimate knowledge of these systems that they've reproduced every single chip in software, and our computers are powerful enough today to run them at full speed.
yeah, you can emulate all the way into let's see, Amiga 4000. I saw the Amiga kit on there, which was another company that built an Amiga like system. So yeah, you could run a bunch of different types of Amigas on there. It's really great. I guess at this point, I should probably let people know that there were several Amiga models. They range from the Amiga 1000, which was the first one, and then you have the Amiga 500, which is actually a value version, which was it was the most popular one in Europe. It's very popular, the Amiga 500. And then you have the Amiga 2000, the Amiga 3000, the Amiga 4000, and the 4000T, which I believe was a tower, and you could put in expansion cards and whatnot. So several different Amigas. They were all made until 1994, when Commodore went bust. So sad day.
Indeed, and it's sad that it never took off more. It seemed to be just a constant case of not in the right place at not the right time, changing hands, and just the stars would not align for them. I mean, they had some moderate success in Europe. They had their niche markets, but they never made a dent in the mainstream computing environment.
So it's definitely I think we all missed out on that. So I really wish Amiga had been a stronger player back then. I wish I would have had one when I was a kid, and sadly I didn't. Do you want to tell them about the bouncing ball demo?
Yeah, I'll try. So the bouncing red and white checkered ball is very iconic of the Amiga. It was the first demo that really got them noticed. Where was it that they displayed that? It was at CES, right?
CES in January of '84.
Yes, at an early CES, January '84, and they cobbled together a breadboard prototype. This was before they even had it going on integrated circuits.
Yes.
And like they were pulling it down to the wire, like pulling all-nighters up until the very last minute, and all that it was just a red and white pseudo 3D bouncing ball that would make funk noises every time it hit the side. But what was incredible about it back then was how large the ball was, how many pixels they were pushing around on the screen, and again, ahead of their time. No one else could do that.
No one.
I believe the sound was even one of the foam bats they used to bludgeon each other at the office being whacked on something in a garage. They recorded that. And so if you look up Amiga bouncing ball demo, it's very simple, just a little ball going thunk thunk thunk, but that ball eventually became what they were known for. It became their logo for a while. That's the bouncing ball demo.
Yeah, because the first logo was I don't know if it was the very first logo, but I know one of the first logos was like a check mark, and it was in kind of rainbowish colors, the check mark. And then they later on, I think this might have been past Commodore. That part I don't know, but they started using the bouncing ball as their main logo.
What else?
So, did you know that the IBM licensed the GUI from Amiga and used it on OS 2.0? Yeah,
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's how popular Workbench was back then.
One thing we didn't mention was the paradigm that Workbench used. It was very different. We're used to graphical interfaces that are modeled after the desktop, the physical desktop. We have a thing we have a desk, we have papers and stuff like that. What they modeled theirs after was, it's called Workbench. They modeled it after a workbench. Instead of files and folders, they had drawers and projects. So it was designed from the ground up, really, for being creative. You go to your workbench, you create things. That was the entire model for the GUI for the Amiga.
Yeah, that was just a little bit confusing for me in the beginning because I was used to desktop and recycling bin and all these things, but that part was just a little confusing, just kind of shifting to that. But hey, it's fine. Still part of the office, right? So yeah.
Speaking of confusing, do you want to talk about the mystery of how to install things?
I still have not been able to install much of anything, and I'm not talking about just the OS overall. I'm talking about any game. Now, I believe there was a tool that allowed you to install some games.
WHD load.
Right. But how did that work? Did that allowed you to copy the files over to the hard drive, right? So these were games that didn't have installers. Is that correct?
Most of the games didn't have installers.
It just ran off the floppy disks.
Yes, and I think that's just kind of how it always was there.
And unfortunately, this is one of my least favorite things about the Amiga, just because I had a number of floppy disks and disk drives die back then. So to have your medium run off of floppy disks, it's slow and it's fragile. So I can imagine many people getting their disks ruined. So I would have made backups back then immediately, just in case.
Later Amigas did have hard drives.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen Amiga OS 4.1 with the hard drives just loaded full of applications. I think we just need to do more research into how the applications are managed. For all we know, it's one of those kind of all-in-one packaging systems like OS X has. We just drop it into a system folder. But the OS is just so foreign to us because we have no frame of reference for it.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, the first time I even tried to install a game, I didn't see an installer. Okay, no problem. So what do? I looked it up, and then there's this guy on YouTube talking about using that program to grab specific files off the floppy disk, and you had to make sure there was only this file and not the other file because it had to deal with this version. And then you copied that over, and then you had to run another program. Oh, it was a lot. So, and again, these are for games that don't have installers. But I would rather install my games on the system rather than just run them off the floppy disks, the floppy drive. Just because, also it just takes forever to load. So I'm spoiled with new machines nowadays. They're all quick, so it just sitting there waiting for the disk to load. It seemed like an eternity to me, but I'm sure this was quite normal back then.
I do love that the emulators make the disk the floppy disk noises.
Yes, that was great.
The whirring and the clunking, and
Yeah, that was awesome. I really liked
which
it.
actually made the wait more bearable, because I mean you still had to wait about as long as it would take for the floppy to load, because I don't know if they were intentionally slowing it down or if they were just so fully emulating the architecture that they even emulated the limited bandwidth that you have between a floppy drive and the computer.
Yeah, you're right. And actually, that reminds me. The first time that I used the emulator, I had my speakers turned off, and I was just waiting there for the game to load, and I'm like, what's going on? And then I turned on the speakers,
and then when you turned it on,
and you hear that was great. That was really good. Yeah, that's I don't know what else to say about the Amiga. Really ahead of its time. The graphics and sound were amazing. I can't believe it was made in '85. The story behind it is epic. Yeah.
if anyone has an interest in retro computing or obscure systems and hasn't researched it, they should. And if you don't, research it anyways, because after that you will.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's definitely worth checking out. Especially, I mean, if anything, it's just for the games. The games are amazing. I mean, many of them were made for the PC. And actually, some of them are ports. The PCs are ports from the Amiga games, so that's pretty nice too. You're playing the original games. So, but yeah, high quality games. I was playing Alien Breed the other day, and it was really fun playing Alien Breed. That and Batman. Those were my two favorites from the list of games that I was playing. Gods is another one that I remember.
Oh, I know something that we didn't mention. The Amigas had the ability of there's an actual term for it. Multigen. I'm ill prepared for this. It means the ability to display or to have multiple sounds playing at the same time and to have videos and rendered text going at the same time. No.
Okay.
I'll look it up later.
Sure.
But this ability, the ability to do multiple audio streams and displaying of videos and rendering of text on top of that video was one of the largest things that set it apart, and that was how products like the Amiga Video Toaster came to be, which was a back then heavily used video processing platform that probably used that ability to its limit. Without it, the Video Toaster would not have existed.
Right. Yeah, I forgot about Video Toaster. That's right, one of the main programs. You know what? Another one of the programs that they had used back then with the Amiga was Lightwave. So Lightwave 3D. Yeah, a couple of other 3D rendering programs were used. There's just so many things that the Amiga was already light years ahead of everybody else. Yeah, it's just it's unfortunate what happened, but at least we can tell the story.
Yep. But I mean, just because it's the technical best doesn't mean it's going to be the most popular. I mean, look at Budweiser, King of Beers. That stuff tastes like garbage, but it's the most popular beer.
Somebody's gonna write on the comments, I like Budweiser.
Dear Chris and Euro, I think Budweiser's the best beer ever. You are un-American, you're a communist, and you should go to Russia where they don't have Budweiser.
Oh boy. That's it. I don't know what else to say about the Amiga. Definitely check it out. I can't stress that enough. If you like retro computing, it's definitely something you need to. Absolutely.
Same here. I've gushed as much as I can.
Yeah. So well, that's it. That's all I have to say.
that's episode 3. Thank you for listening, and we look forward to
The next
to
episode.
our next podcast, and whatever that will be. Hopefully, it'll be as interesting as the Amiga was.
Yes. Oh, and I want to apologize. This is mostly my fault, and by mostly I mean entirely, that we're this late in recording this podcast. So yeah, I'll try not to let this happen again.
You had a great excuse. You were in Russia where they don't have Budweiser.
Yes. Yeah. See.
I mean, they probably
There
have
it is.
Budweiser. Do they have Budweiser?
I don't know. I don't know.
All right.
Okay. See ya.
Thanks, Hero.
Bye bye.